Okay, hi everyone. Um, Welcome to Module 7. And Module 7, we'll be discussing data management and migration. So let's hit straight into what we have for Module 7. So why data management is important? So why must you want to manage the data you have on your dynamic CRM as a functional consultant, right? So data is the foundation of CRM. So the insights you see, every automation you should be building, um, all those fun stuffs, right, sits heavily and they depend largely on the data you have on CRM. So you can't afford to have poor data quality on your Dynamics environment, because with that it will lead you to having bad decisions and poor customer experience. So imagine that you're supposed to send a birthday message yesterday, and for any reason the data is mixed up and it is maybe adding like one or some funny stuffs, right? You will not want to have those kind of data quality issues. So you need to ensure that you have a clean, accurate, and up-to-date data, so that business informations that are being made are up to date. And there are different ways you'll be doing that in Dataverse, right? In regards to managing your data. So there are options for importing and exporting data in Dataverse. So you use the Excel and CLV templates to import bulk records. So like the tables we created, I'm going to show us how we'll be exporting data via Excel, right, from the table. There's also the data import wizard that supports mapping and duplicate detection. And also you have export options from the views, right? So the view you have, you'll be able to export. So let me just walk us through all this. So let's go back, let's go to our environment, and let's go to our solution, our academy solution. Then let's go to this our table. So there's the data export and import option available here. As you can see at the top here, where I'm hovering the mouse, you can see the import option, you can see the export option. So we'll export it, see how it looks like, then import it back, and we'll then proceed from there. So let me just click on to export. You click on this and export data. So it's going to load to export those data, and once it's done exporting it, it will give you the option to download the data that was exported. So let's just give it a couple of minutes to export. So you can see it's exporting the data. Okay, so our data is done exporting. So now we can now download the exported data. So when I click on this, it's going to download it as a zip file, right? And we could now open this zip file to see the information that is there. So I could just show in folder and extract this. So let me just extract all. So once I extract this, so you can see the records that came with it. So it comes out as a CSV. So I could now see that, okay, these are the records that it came in, right? So this is how you could export your records from Dataverse. So let's say I want to import back this record. So what I'll just do is, so that the records are created again, if I return them back with this guild, it will, because this guild are expected to be unique, it will just offset it, it won't recreate it, but also see that it's creating data back. Let's just delete this, the IDs of these records. Let's call this, let's say 7, call this 9, call this 12, right? Call this 14, call this 21, call this 11. So let's just save this, right? And then let's import it back. We'll save at CSV. So saved it. Okay, do you want to save this? Let's save this and call, let's just put it in our demo and in downloads and call this demo file, right? And save as CSV, right? And click on save. So we are done saving. So let's go back now and see how the import works. So let's go back here. So you just click on the import here. So I'll come back to the importing data from different sources to show you how it looks like. But we're going to be discussing, we're going to be showing the Excel option. So when I click on Excel here and I click on upload here, If I click on the file, the system is going to do the auto mapping for me first. Then I could go in and see what it has mapped. So if for any reason it didn't map any column correctly the way you want it, right, you can now change it to suit whatever way you want, right? This is where you could tweak the mappings and adjust as the case may be. So I'll just click on save changes and click on import at this top here. So when I click on import, it's going to import our data for us. So we have very beautiful and different ways of importing data into CRM. Even for export, you could use Power Automate, right, to export those data, right? Call the tables, write an automate flow that will write it on Excel for you or write it to whatever endpoint you want. So you can see that import all those records. So let me refresh this. So if I refresh this, we could see, we'll be able to see the records that came in. So let's see our record load. So it's loading. Okay, so our data is done loading. You can see now, you can see the 12, you can see the 9, the 11, the 14 that we created. So that's basically how you do the data import. So let's also show the import through other sources. So we have a vast options of sources, right, in which you could use for importing your data, right? So we could see the options of having Excel workbook, SQL. So from SQL, you can bring in your data, right? We have SharePoint, text file, which is CSV, which is what I just did. You have for data flow. So I'll be walking us through a full-blown use case of using data flow, right, to import data, doing offset. So we'll just be going into that shortly after this. It's a full-blown use case. In addition to this module. So we have from Dataverse. So let's say you're writing from another environment down to this environment. You could do those options. Then you have a lot of other options. If you click on view more here, you have the robust endpoint you could bring from, and you have them filtered into files, database, Microsoft Fabric, which is where your data flow falls in, Power Platform, also the data flow, the Azure end where you have your Azure data lakes and all that, and the whole fun stuff. So that's basically how you do data import through here. So now let's do it also data import through the view end, right? So let me just go into our environment. So this environment is loading, right? So let's go to our app that we had. So let's give it some time to load. So we'll be going into our app that we created from our previous module. So this is now our data here. So how you could export view records, just click on the three dots here. You could see export to Excel. So once you click on this, it's going to export it. So you can see when I click on this now, I have all my records here exported. As easy as that, right? So when I enable this, it also, if I double click on this, it also have the option of giving me the guild, right, of each of those records. So I could use it to do whatever I want to do as the case may be. So that's basically how you export, right, records from your guild interface. Also, you also have the option of importing from Excel. So when you click on this also, it's going to ask you to impute the file. So you could choose the file you want to impute, right? Just select this and hit on next. I don't want to use the same file because I didn't remove the guild. It will only just do offsetting, so nothing basically will change. But these are the other options for you to import and export records, right, from the view end. So let's walk through the use case of data importing through data flow and also doing some offset. So it's going to be a fantastic one, and let's go through that together shortly.
Let's start with our business scenario. So in this case now, right, we have a record in our external system. So for our demo, we'll be walking through, okay, bringing a record from Excel, but in different ways can come from. So you can have data coming from your Azure data lakes. You can have data coming from Synapse as a like maybe. And even before data comes from those level. So you could connect from your on-prem to and push data to a data lake. Then from data lake, you can now push them incrementally to CRM as the case may be. So whatever architecture works for you, you could write straight into it. Well, what we will be building here will be how the business wants us in such a way that the data they are having on their other source system, they want to be able to pass it to Dynamics, and they have something unique. So it's not going to be a one-off for every record. So it's going to be records that come in and they will change over time. So when they change, what happens? How are you going to update the record instead of creating a new one? So that's what we'll be working and showing how the power of data flow could help to do that. So that's basically a run through on what the use case is. So what solution will be helping us achieve this? As always, it's data flow. So the data flow is a self-service cloud-based data preparation technology from Microsoft. So as you can see, it's fits into Dataverse and the Azure Data Lake storage. Also, you could pass from the Azure Data Lake storage even still through data flow. So it's just like it's a pipeline in which you could use to aggregate data, do ETLs, then pass them into the base data warehouse that you want to use. In this case, what we're focusing on more is the Dataverse, because all the applications that we use from the dynamic CRM standpoint feeds from the Microsoft Dataverse. So as you can see, so both your Power Apps, your Power Automate, all of them, they feed from the Dataverse. So basically, that's what data flow helps you to do. So it helps you to pass those records into Dataverse, and from Dataverse, all your application that feeds from it can actually see through your data. And what is the concept of offset? So as I was explaining in regards to the customer-based scenario, in which the customer wants to be able to ingest those data. So if the data is already existing in CRM, they want the data to update, meaning when they are writing it back, they are changing some records, maybe on some columns, as the case may be, which you'll see later on in our hands-on demo. Then, but if the record doesn't exist in CRM, then it should run a create action, which is all what you see in this flow. So if you are ingesting your record and the record coming in already exists in CRM using the primary key, which I'll show you guys how those are identified, then it should update it. If it's not there, then it should create it. That's just basically the run through for how offset works. So with that being said, let's go down to our live demo. So I'll show you guys how to create data flow. Then I'll also show you guys how you could load your records during the creation, and also how the offset is done. Then record lookup. So you have different tables and you want to tie them from data flow before so that when it comes to CRM, it's already linked. I'm going to show you guys all that. So let's see how the data structure of the data we're bringing in looks like. So I just came up with something very simple for us. So we have a sales database, which is the sales rep database, which is the sales TB, so the sales table. So this table holds the information of your sales representative, right? Then it has a one-to-one relationship with the customer table. So one customer is tied to one sales rep, and what links them is the sales ID. So if you have a sales ID here, you also have one here. So that's basically the scenario we have here. So you could also have it in such a way that one salesperson might have multiple one salesperson, sorry, be tied to different customers. So it will be a one-to-many relationship, as the case may be. So whatever way you are structuring your data, you can re-implement that in CRM. So also, I just want to show one also. It is not a perfect ERD. I just had to use PowerPoint to just be able to explain out the concept. But at this point in time, right, you already have your ERD ready and all that. So it's just to give you a walkthrough on how you can ingest those things into CRM. So I just want to use that. We just use this for demo's sake. Then, while for the customer table, we have a customer has many items in relations to the items table, and what links them is actually customer ID. So the primary key for sales table is the sales ID. The primary key for the customer table is the customer ID, while the primary key for your item table is the item ID. So this primary keys is what we'll now set as the key on CRM. So which CRM we use to identify when a record should be offset or it should be created new. So if it sees that this ID already exists, when it's used data has been injected into Dataverse, it's going to check. So this ID that is coming in now, does it already exist in CRM? If it's yes, then it goes pick the current records on the different columns and replace it with what was there before. If it's no, it recreates the whole of that record. So let's just walk through how our data looks like. So let me just come here. Excuse me. So this is the customer table. So this first one is the one that shows the customer table with the first set of records. So I'm going to use this to show both offsets and creation. So you could see that there's customer table 1, there's customer table 2. So in customer table 2, I've changed some columns and I've added some new ones. So you could see here, you just have the customer ID, full name, location, phone number, and the sales rep ID. So the same thing also with the customer table 2. So if you come to customer table 2 here, so you could see, so like this one, the name was changed here, this phone number was changed, this sales rep ID was changed, the location changed here for the ones that are highlighted in yellow. Then these ones are actually new records. So you now see that new records will be created, while for the old one it will be updated. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create our table in CRM, especially on Dataverse, which CRM fits from. So to start off, you first go to make the Power Apps.com, which is where you could easily have the whole access to your Dataverse end. So we'll navigate to the solution one, the environment, sorry, that we want to work on. So when I come here, I'll just pick this environment. I just pick one of the environments in our solution. So when our environment is selected, so the first thing is I want us to create a solution which will do whatever I want to do inside. So let me just create a new solution. I'll call this solution data offsets, right? Just leave everything as default. And I'll select my publisher, then just use the default publisher, then I create. My solution is already created. So we have 3 tables in our case, which one of them is the customer table, and we have the item listing, and we have the sales rep. So we just go back to Dataverse, go to tables, and then click on new, then go to tables and click new table. So I'm going to call this table customer table, something like this. Then I'll just save this. Then add now to the columns that we have. The columns we have on our table here, you can see we have customer ID, full name, location, phone number, and sales rep ID. So I'll take this up here and so I can create the other ones. The first is the customer ID, so I'll go to here, and customer ID is string, so I'll just call this customer ID. Then we just leave everything as text. Click on save. So we're trying to recreate the structure of our data table from the source we're bringing it down into CRM. So that's done. Then the next column we have is what we call full name. So I'll just call this full name. Then leave it also as text. Then click on save. Then location also, we leave location as text. So basically good. So I'll just say location. So I'll leave it also as text. Then click on save. The next is phone number, and I want to put this as number. Or possibly we could still leave this as text, but let me just use whole numbers and just save this. So the last column now is the sales rep ID, but the sales rep ID is actually going to be a lookup field to our sales rep table. So the next thing we need to do now is to create our new table, which is the sales rep table. So come here as usual and say, excuse me, come here, table, click on table. Display and call it sales table, and let's save this. So our table is done creating. So just click on the drop down, go to columns. So we need to open up the sales file. We need to bring like, so when I open up the sales file. Yeah, so for sales, what we just have is the sales rep ID, the name, and the office code. So let's just go run this. So what we have first of all is the sales new column. So what I want to put here is the sales ID, and this will be phone number, and save. Then the next thereof is what we have here, the name, then the office code. Both of them are strings. Just go down here, do new name. So it's the name of sales rep. So we just do full name, something like this. Let me say it's a string. You can save. Then why the last is office code, as you can see here. So I'll go back to environment, click on new column and do office code, and so we're basically done creating the sales table. So what we now do is now to establish the relationship. So let's say, for instance, you have one customer. A customer have just one sales rep. So what you now need to do, you now need to establish a relationship between customer table and the sales table. So to do that, you click on customer and you go to relationship. And you come to new. So in this case, I want one customer to have just one I have just one sales rep. So what I can do is I'll say many here can have one here. That's how we'll be going to many customers can have one sales rep. So I just click many to one. Then it asks me which table do I want to relate with. So I'll just come and look for sales here. I call it sale. So this is the table. So I click on sale. So this is the lookup that it's giving us. So also this one you could check it, you could confirm if you want this column in this table now that it's recreating to either be optional, business recommended, or business required. I think if you check one of my videos where I talked about creating entities in Microsoft Dataverse, I think you get more details on what most of these are. But we'll just leave it this way, and I'll click on done. That's creating. Let's just give it some minute. Okay, so our relationship is done. Now, if you want to just find the relationship you created, if you come to the display name, you can see it's sales table. This is the record, and you can see the type. So that's basically what we have. And the last now is now the item table. So when you go back to our Excel file, you open up the item table. Let's see what we have. The item table. Yes, so for the item table, we have the item ID, we have the customer ID, we have the item name, SKU, and the delivery price. Let's drag this to my other screen while I minimize this one. I think we've done here, and I'll go back here. So as usual, click on tables, then click on new, and what we have now is table, and I'll call this item table like this, and I'll click on save. Okay, so our table is provisioning. Okay, so our table is done provisioning, and this is item table. So I want to add the columns for the item table. The first is the item ID. So I'll click on this, call this item ID. An item ID is a string. Anyway, text. Our customer ID to is the string. So the next we'll be creating will be the customer ID. Okay, so the next we're creating is the customer ID. So I'll click on new column here and come here. Okay, yeah. So next is customer. So our customer ID will actually be a lookup. It will be a lookup to the customer ID field. So we necessarily not pass that in. So I could just leave that out. So when we create a relationship, have that in. So what we have next is item name. Item name. That's also, oh sorry. Okay, item name, yeah. So I can click on save. Then the next is the SKU. The SKU is integer. So I come here and say SKU. Convert this data type to whole number, and I click on save. Then the next is delivery price. Our delivery price is floats because it has decimal, as you can see. So making it float. Then I come here and say call this delivery price. Delivery price. And for this one, it's a number, but this time it's decimal. Can do everything as it is. Great. So for our last column, which is the customer ID, we'll create a relationship. So in this case, you have one, you have a customer, an item having only just one customer. So in that case, we could just go back to the customer table, and from the customer table now, we'll create the relationship. So as we understood from our diagram now, right? One customer can have many items. So I could go here and take the case of one to many. So I'll just click on this. Now, which table is it relating to in terms of many? And I'll call this the item table. The item table. This is the item table. So the lookup column display name will be customer table. You could change the name as the case may be at every given time. So I click on done. Okay, now we are done creating our different tables. The next thing now is now to establish the primary key, which the table will be using to identify records when you're doing your offset, as the case may be. So you go to keys here. So we'll now establish a new key. So in this place, I'll call it customer ID because I want to use the customer ID as the key. So I'll just select the column I want to use as that key and click on save. So when you refresh this, it says pending here status. So let's refresh again. Still running. So we can go create the other ones. They will come back to check this later. So I can come on the item table. So establish its own key. And in this case, we are using the item ID. So I'll just call this item ID as our key. Then go select the item ID. Then click on save. That will also be running. Then for the sales, the key we're using is actually the sales ID. Sales ID. So in this case, it's the sales ID. So just click on save. So now we are done establishing the keys. So let's check if customer is done. Still running. It's taking some time. So let's just give it time to run. Let's see for. Okay, it's still running. While it's running, then the next thing we will now want to do is, how do we, let's just bring in all our records into a form. If you want to see how forms are being done in advanced level, you can check my videos also. I talked about working on advanced forms. But for this one, we just create something quick. So let me just go to form, so we could bring in all the informations we need. So these are the main form UI, the out of the box from Microsoft. So I want to remove all these guys. Let me just remove this one. Okay. Just hide this section. So let me just drag what we need. That's not to waste time. So what we need is bring customer ID. name, this name, so let me hide it. So I need the customer ID, let me make customer full name, then the customer's location, customer's phone number, and I want to know the sales rep. So when I put this here, I want to know the sales rep that is tied to this customer. Yes. So if I come here, I'll just rename this label and call it sales rep. So it's a lookup. So from this, I can click on and go directly to the sales rep that is. Now that the sales rep has taken effect, the next is now for us to add um, the items that the customer has. So to do that, you go to your component. You could use this here or whatever. Previously we were on form fields. You could go to component, then just go to subgrid. So when you click on subgrid, you say show related records. So if I click on show related records, then I'll just pick the record is related to, and in this case we're talking about the items table. So I just click on this items table, and the default view I want is the item. So I click on done. It's going to provision with this for me, so I could come here and rename and say lists of items for customer, something like this. Good. So that's basically the way we could set all that. So I'll just save and publish. Okay, we are done saving this form and we published. So another cool stuff is, these columns that you have on this view might not speak to what you might want. So you might want to edit them. So to go about that, you just go back here. So now you go to the table that holds that record, which is item, then go to views. So is this active item that we use? So if you click on this, now you can see that only these two columns are there. So you could add whatever you want to add. So I could just put the item name here. I could also put the item ID, something like that. And the SKU also can follow. Then you just save this, publish. So with that, we've updated we're using on this our form here. So the view we brought in here, the subgrid, we tied with using the relationship of one to many in reference to customer and the item. So you could see that the view here has been updated. So now we're all good to go. So now we want to be able to view this table in CRM. So let's just go back to our environment and just pick any of the apps. Let's say we come to the customer service hub. So in this case now we want to be able to view this. So let's just come drop the customer just below this customer icon, and I think we should be able to go from there. So let's just go back to our items and go on the customer service hub, come here, then go to open app designer. So allow that to open up. So our app designer has opened up, and these are the page navigations by your left hand side on the view. So we want to put it under the customer section. So you just go to customer, click on these three ellipses here, Then you see the new page. I'll click on new page, and to ask us to choose where the content is coming from. One come from a Dataverse table. So I'll click on next. Then now I will select the table I want, which is in this case is the customer table which we created. So as you can see this, I'll click on this and then click on add. So by default, now that I've added this, we also it shows us what we have for the customer. When you want to create a new record, how does it look like? So you see this is how the form that we had created for it will be displayed. So with this, I think we're done to be able to view our records. So I'll just click on save, and also I'm going to publish. All right, so we're done publishing. Just go back and go back to the customer service hub. Click on this so we're sure we can see the entity we just brought in. So I'm trying to refresh. So let's reload this again and see that's not reflected. Yeah, so we can see our customer table now. So if we click on this, it brings us to the view of the customer table. But we don't have any record here, so we won't be able to see anything now. So now to the let's also confirm that in our solution and in our tables that we created, our keys are up and running. So let me click on data offset solution. Go down to tables, click on customer and go to keys. Let's see the status. Now it's active, so we're ready on the status column. So if you go to item also, if you come here to keys, it's active, so fine. Then if you come to sales, if you come to key, it's active. Perfect. So the next thing now is for us to now ingest our data. So the first thing is we ingest sales and item because both of them will be part of the things that the customer table will be picking from when it's trying to match its records, right? So let's push that in first. All right. So the idea is always push in your primary key first across. Have the data flow that push in the primary key first, so that when the flows are the data are coming in that are supposed to be linked, they will already see those primary key already sitting there for them to go in. So how do we build data flow down to the icing on the cake for moving our records down into the structure we've already built? So just go back here and go to more. We are still on an environment, so go to more. So click on tables, scroll down and go to data flows. So on data flow now, we're now going to create data flow that's going to ingest our records for us. So I'll create a new data flow, create it from blank, then I'll call this customer table ID inflow, right? So this will only help to just pass in the key column. That's still loading. Okay, so our data flow is open. So from our own case, as you can see, as I said earlier in the course of the video, you can ingest data from different data sources, right? But in this case, we just want to upload a file. So let me go here. So since we're uploading from the customer table, we'll just go down to the documents we want to work on. Trainers, offsets, and I can go to the first table. Click on this. So we're going to create a connection for us after uploading the file. So it's done uploading them. trying to pass in through the gateway. Request to sign in to sign. Okay, so I'm done signing in, so it has established our connection. So when we are now here, the next, we'll go and click next. So now, this is what we want to work on. So we have our customer ID, our full name, location, phone number, and the rep ID. So you click on transform data. Okay, so we now pass in the we now have our data, but remember this ID will be looking up on this sales rep ID will be looking up on the sales rep table to find this record and establish a connection with this record and this specific ID on the sales table. But since it's not there, it's going to drop an error. So as I said earlier on, the best practice is records that are not yet looked up, you pass them in first. And when these records are now available in the other record, then you can pass you can have a second data flow that does the offsets, that does the linking for you. So in this case, now just click on next. Give it time to load. Okay, yes. So our table is now fine. So this is now the mapping stage. So I want to load it to an existing table. So I'll click on load to existing table, and the table I want to load it to is customer customer table, this one. So click on it, then it brings up your source and brings up your destination, right? So now this is the table that does the lookup to the sales, but we can't pass it in now, because if we pass it in and we ingest the data, it's going to drop an error because those IDs are not yet present in the sales table. So come here and say, and I'll do, this is customer ID, this is full name, this is location. For the name, we can use the full name. So you could just say full name for the name. This is a primary field for that table established. Then for the next, we can say the phone number, we can use phone number, and for this we leave it. When we are done ingesting for sales table, we can come and rerun this pipeline again. So I'll click on next. You can set your refresher settings. So if you want data to be in an incremental fashion such that they come and you change them, then you could do this here. But we'll just leave everything as it is and publish. So I'll click on the publish icon. So our data flow is going to publish. After publishing, it's going to run. So let's let that run, then we can confirm our data in CRM. So while that is running, so as not to waste too much time, we could ingest our data on the item table and also on the sales table. So let's quickly do that. So just click on new data flow. So you see sales table inflow, right? Sorry. Then we create this. So this time we click browse, and the table we want is the sales table. So click on open. And then allow the table to load. Yeah, so it picked the credentials we signed in previously. So we can click on next. Now this is the table we want. So we have our sales rep ID, the person's name, and the person's office code. So click on transform data as usual. So for this one, Yeah, so have the records here. So click on next. We're not making any transformation here. Okay, so this is now. So as usual, we are loading to our existing table. Click on load to existing table. The table we want to work on is the sales table, which is let's see, this one. So click on sales table and full name as usual. We go to person's name. We could use the same for the name. Then office code, use office code. Then the sales ID, we're using sales ID. And we're also establishing, oh, we missed this out in the customer table. So you establish which key is the primary, you select your key from here. So in this case, we know we called it sales ID, so I just click on sales ID and click on next. So that's running. When it gets to this point, as usual, we'll leave it manual, then we'll click on publish. So that's publishing. So as you can see, our customer ID, the first data flow we created, it's now done. So you can see what actually happened. You can go to your show refresh history. Then this is the one that we just ran and run the type. So click on it to see what happened. We created 8 records. Records updated 0, record failed 0, there was no error message. So all that entered was fine. Quickly see this one you created. You can go back to your customer table, click on refresh here. Voila. So this is what we just brought in. And if I click on James Peter, and there's no item because we've not brought in and linked that in. So let's keep up the good work and go back. Our sales is coming in. Let's also bring in the item table. So we'll call this item table inflow. Then click on create. Then click on browse. So we want to do the item. So usual is will load. While as usual, click on next after the connection has been set. Then we click on this is the table we want to use. So I click on transform data. Yeah, so we have our data already sitting in CRM. Then the next, we click on next. So we'll go to load existing table. And in this case, the table we're looking out for is the item table here. So now we'll now load this into the system. So for customer table, we've injected customer already, so we can actually pass this in and it's going to go through. So we go to customer and say it's customer ID, and we go to the delivery price. We go with the delivery price. We go to item. We say sale is the item ID, and the name we still make it the item name. Then the name we could also make it item name. Then SKU is SKU. Then the primary key we created was this item ID. Then we could click on next. After clicking on this, leave everything the same, and now we can refresh. That's going to run. So you can see that the sales table has gone in. You could check the sales table here by going back to your solution. So if we go to our tables, if you go to sales table, so click on it, you see the information that came in. Yeah. So it's loading. Yeah, so these are the sales persons that we just brought in now. Okay, let's go back to our data flow. This is running. So while this is running, we can now go back and rerun for the sales link to the table, the customer table. So I could go back here and edit this. I can leave everything as same, and I'll go back here and say next. Now what I'll just do is I'll update the lookup to the sales table. So I just click on this and go to sales rep ID and click on publish. So we're going to publish and rerun this. So you can see it's publishing. Also our item has gone successfully. So if I go back to the customer table, if I refresh this, I can now see the items that belong to James Peter. So these are the two items that belong to James Peter based on how our record is mapped. So if I click on this also, it will take me to that, record. So this one didn't adjust any form. From here you could see in details. So if I come to James Peter, I'll see James Peter. Okay, our flow is done for the linking up to this one is also done. That's why you could see the sales rep here. This is the sales rep. You can see that the sales rep is now Adam Zampa, which is a lookup. If I click on this, if you set your form, you now see more details about this sales rep individual. Okay, we'll quickly do that. So let me just go back here so I can show you how this is cool in working with. So if you come back to, let's say, the sales, and go to the sales on form. So if you come to the sales information card, this is the one from all the cards, so main information. All right, so let's say in this case now, right, what we want to see when you open up the sales rep is the salesperson's office, the sales rep ID, and all those fun stuff based on what you want. So I could hide this, also bring the sales rep's full name. While I hide this one, then I could bring in the person's office code, the person's ID, the person's. I thought we had location for sales, but I don't think we did for the sales rep. So we can just save and publish this. So let's monitor. Okay, we can see that all our data flow has run successfully. So what we just did for this customer table now is what is called offset. So if you check your second refresher, you can see that where is the second one? This one second. So you can see that it updated the row, it didn't create them again. Why? Because the primary keys that we ingested again are already existing on the table in CRM. So instead of recreating them, it just updated them. So with this, you will not have to recreate. It will not recreate those records. It just updates the record, and it will now update the fields that are provided now in the record. That's why you can see records updated at 8, while records created 0, records failed is 0. Why, if you go to the first one we created, you can see that when the primary keys that were being ingested were not there at that point in time, all we had were records that were created. So with that, I will also ingest the second customer table that we have, so that you see how many were created and how many were updated. So we're done with this. Save and publish. You can go back. Let's do also for the item table. Go to its form, then come to main. So on main now, we will now just, as usual, what we did previously, just drag some of the fields we want to see. So let's say for the item now, I want to hide this. So I just want to bring the item ID here. I want to bring the item ID, the item name, the item ID itself, the price, what again? Who is the customer that is owning this? So if you bring this up, it's going to bring a list of all of that customer, especially lookup, the customer that owns that item. Then what again? They want to bring in here. Okay, have this, then just save and publish, so that when you go back to CRM and I refresh all this, so from this now, let me see if this is done publishing. Good, this is done publishing. So if I, so what that helps to do now, if, for instance, I come to James Peter. So now James Peter is staying in Abidjan. This is his number. This is his customer ID. This is the sales rep that is tied to James. So I want to get more information about the sales rep. So I can just click on this and it will open me the sales rep form with the additional details I need to know about Adam Zampa. So I know his office code is this and his sales ID. So there's some information you might want to add as the case may be. So I could still go back and now want to check more details on the items that belong to James Peter. So I can click on this new Super Mario Bros. So, or the wheel spots. So if I click on this, I could see the details on this. So I could see that the item name is this, the delivery price is this, the SKU is this, and the customer is actually James Peter. So that's basically the cool stuff you can do from data flow, where you could measure your data, do all your linking and everything even before the data comes into CRM, and you just put all the heavy work and heavy load on through data flow. So lastly, let's just recreate another flow, and this time we'll use our second data. So it will update for the ones that need to be updated, then do a creation for the ones that are new. I'll just call this customer inflow 2. So I'll create this, and as usual, I'll just browse and come to customer table 2. Open, I like to establish connection and also load the data. So when it's done, you click next. Now select the table we want. This is the table we want to use. So I'll click on transform data. Clicking on transform data. And I can click on next. So clicking on next. Now I can load back to the table we want. In this case, it's still the customer table. Customer table. So now I could just say customer ID is this, full name is this, location is this, name is still full name, phone number is phone number, and the sales ID is sales ID. Connect. Now click on publish. So we need to let this run and we'll then see details of what happened. Okay, while that's still running, so you can see that the second table we're running to do offset and board load are running. So another way you could check that, you could also come here, click on your edit here. So let's just edit the data directly from here and just do a quick check of offsets and creation as the case may be. So when I come here to these records, I can go to next to transform them. You know, back. I want to edit them before going. Let's yeah. Records. Okay, one way to be able to edit this is for us to be able to bring in, let's bring in the second table, Excel workbook on codifier, so let's quite some time to load, so just click on this. Yeah, and click on next. This one we want. As you can see, these two records are actually new records, while this one is changing here just from this our files, you see. So click on create. So while it's being created, now we could go to next and just do direct mapping. This is the previous one we had, and this is the one we just created. So for this one, we could just come back here to load to existing. What we do here is map to the customer table. This one, customer key, just customer ID, location, name, phone number, and sales ID. We actually don't want this, so we just reload setting. And come back here and only just publish this one. So publish this. Let's go back. We can publish this. So, okay, so we now have this customer table. Select this box. One column must be mapped. Let's just map only the customer ID. Customer ID is fine. And come here and let's publish this. Coming up with issues. Let me do only this one. Okay, so we have that running. Still running, it's taking quite some time, which is not supposed to be. Refresh this and see. The records are not much, and it's not supposed to take that long. Oh, this is already done. So this is just what I wanted us to see. So when you come to refresh history, you click on this. So you can see now that 5 records were updated, 2 were created. These are actually the file we brought in. As I said previously, these 2 are new records. Y1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are actually records, and this yellow shows things that were changed from their previous record. So that's basically how you do record offsets in dynamic CRM using data flow and injecting data from different sources into your dynamic system.
Okay, so that's basically how the whole importing and exporting journey can be very, very robust, just as we've just seen, right? It can be very, very robust, right? And you could do a lot of fun stuff with it. So now let's proceed to the next we have. So the next we have is duplicate detection. So just like we saw in the previous session, right, where you could use primary key, right, to ensure that data that enter are unique and there's no duplicate, right? There are other ways duplicate detection is already set on the system. So for instance, now records are being created from the system. So let's just walk down to our system. When you click on this and you go to advanced settings, right, the what you want to look at for is your data management, right? If you go down to system, you see data management. When you click on this, you have your duplicate detection settings, your duplicate detection rules, your duplicate detection jobs. So these duplicate detection settings are the different settings you could change, right? That you use to check for duplicate detection in the course of the system. So for us now is when a record is created, we want duplicate detection rules to run. Also, when Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Outlook goes from offline to online, let's also the duplicate rules check. Then during data import, also the rules should check. So that's the settings. So these are different rules, right? You could see the different rules that are set on the system. Things like checking if the account has same email, contact has same email, or the with same first name and last name. So things like that. There are different ways you could build those unique and duplication rule sets, right? So as you can see, this is basically how you could just review what's already have on the system, then create yours for yourself and have them handy in your whole data operation. So let's go also back. You have the duplicate detection jobs, right? So these are the jobs that I've run. If you want to see the different jobs that I've run in the course of the system, you could check them here. But you can see we don't have any here, right? Then one other cool feature you have is the bulk delete operation, right? So this one helps you to clean records in bulk. So let's say I want to clean on our second table now. Let's say we want to wipe up everything. So let's say we click on new job. So it's going to ask us the table we want to clean that from, and also for us to specify we want to clean it from table 2. So it will ask us to put some conditions. So let's say I want to clean all the ones that were created today. So let's say I add a row, and the row is the created on, right, should be today. So now let's preview the records that are there. So you can see all these records. So all these records are the ones that will go based on these conditions we're given, right? So I could also schedule email to go out. I could make this recurring to run after every certain time. But with all that set, I could just click on different actions like I want to do. Maybe I want to pause it, resume it. So I could just save this. Then that job is going to kick in. So let's say I want to see my bulk deletion jobs. So as you can see, it has run. That's the one that ran just now. And you see it deleted 6 records, right? So if I go back to my tool now, you see that instead of having large amount of record as expected, I've removed the ones that were created today. So that's basically how you run through your data management in full scale, right? In the course of your day-to-day operation and the rule sets for measure. So data migration strategies. So what are the strategies that are advised? So if they are small records, right, and it's just migration, one off. So migration is more of one off. If it's migration, if it's small data, use Excel, right, to push those things in. But if they are quite large amount of records and you need to do some manipulations here and there, so employ your data flows and Power Query, right, to be able to do that. So also for very, very large scale, right, then you bring in data services where you have your Azure Data Factory and all that. But ensure you confirm all your mapping and all your transformations are done correctly before moving them into the system. Because cleaning data also has some throughput count issues, right? And how your storage will be impacted. So that should be on your watch list, right? So now let's proceed to integrations versus migration. So migration is a one-off. I'm just moving everything once, boom, right to my environment. Why integration is there's a source, then maybe you now have a staging area, and after the staging area, you now have your Dataverse. So data will be changing on this source. So as data is changing on this source, you want also to be reflecting those changes on Dynamics, right? On Dataverse. So basically, that's where integration comes in, and you could use different third-party system. You could also build a pipeline for things like that. Use connectors. So we have some tools like the Kingway soft, right, that could help with that. We have the SSIS. We also have Power Automate, which is what we just showed earlier on. Then the best practice I would love to advise is ensure you validate your data. This is very key as a functional consultant. Ensure data are validated before they are inputted into the system. You did the fields creation and all that. Ensure you also validate what if you are working on a very big team, right? And there will be like a data team that will be in charge of moving those data down. Ensure you validate what they are bringing in so that they don't mess up the configurations you've done and people start shouting things are not working, these are not this, and all is because of the kind of data that was brought in. So use staging area for complex migration, right? If you have a lot of manipulation that needs to be done, use staging areas and move them first, do your stuff, then move them to Dataverse. So always back up your production data as you always, then test migration in sandbox environment first. This I cannot loud it enough, but ensure you test your migration in your sandbox before you proceed, right? So, in summary, Dynamics offer a vast number of tools that you as a functional consultant can leverage on. So all you need to do is your migration needs careful planning and testing. That is really, really key, right? When you are migrating or importing data, ensure you plan carefully before any of those things are moved into the system so that you have a smooth running and business decisions will be made correctly. So thank you and see you in our next um, module.